And there's news in the Major League Baseball world. The owners have made a proposal to the Players Union on a shortened season, 82 games. And there's a little bit of a dispute, there seems to be, about what type of revenue split we're looking at between the players and the owners. Ken, what's the latest from Major League Baseball on their proposal to the players?
Actually, Jason, they're presenting that proposal right now for the first time. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of reports about what is in that proposal. You can see it right there. And there's been a lot written and a lot said about what's in that proposal. But this is the first time they've actually spoken. It's a digital conversation. It's going on through Zoom or whatever. And in addition to the financial elements, the bottom thing there, protocol for keeping players safe, that is really the number one concern for players right now. How is this going to work? How logistically are we going to be kept safe? And not just us, but the coaches, the managers, the trainers, everyone else. And in addition to all that, what happens if a player gets sick? What happens to that team? How does this all work? So that is the first priority, the health question, and settling that. And after that, you can deal with some of the financial questions and some of the other things, though in some respects, the financial question is tied to health, and that the players believe, rightly so, that they're the ones taking the risk and they do not want to make any further financial concessions.
You brought us to the money point and the money question. What the players suspicious of the owners' suggestion of a 50-50 revenue split. Baseball obviously has no salary cap. They have no interest in this. What do you think is the real motivation behind the owners asking for a 50-50 revenue split?
Jason, I wish I knew the answer to that because, as you mentioned, baseball is the only major professional sport without a salary cap. The Players Union has been historically and strongly opposed to any suggestion of a salary cap. And when you have a straight percentage of revenue that is accorded to players, that in the union's mind is something that amounts to a salary cap. Now, let's go back a little bit. There was a March agreement in which the players agreed to prorated salaries for the 2020 season if it's played on a shortened schedule. So 81-game season, for instance, just let's make the math easy. Mookie Betts is making $20 million. He makes half that, $10 million. That's the prorated. Now, what the owners are saying is we don't want to do that because we will lose money with no fans in the park if we pay the players their full prorated salary. That's why they suggested this revenue split of 50-50. But they had to know, in my opinion, that this would trigger the players, for lack of a better phrase. And I wonder if this is indeed a formula they think can work on a one-time basis, and that's the only suggestion here. It's a one-time basis. Or is this simply a negotiating position? You start off here, and then you get to another level that is more acceptable to the players.
You said something in your original answer that I hadn't considered because I was originally on the owner's side. But I think the best argument the players have on their side is like, okay, you're going to lose revenue, but we're taking the health risk. That makes up the difference in why we want a prorated portion of our contract.
Jason, actually, you wouldn't want to see either side using the pandemic to its negotiating advantage. It's kind of, for lack of a better word, unseemly. But that is the reality of this situation. And that is kind of where they are with it. Certainly the health thing is no small issue. And if you're a player, it might not even be your health you're worried about. For instance, Sean Doolittle, Nationals reliever, his wife, Erin Dolan, has a history of respiratory problems. He's worried about her, understandably so. You might have a parent who's living with you, even a child with asthma. There are all kinds of things that a player could be wondering about with regard to health that might not even involve him. So there is a lot to sift through there on the health angle, and that's something that they're going to have to address in the coming days.
Are you confident that we're going to have a 2020 Major League Baseball season?
Jason, I'm confident that they're going to get an agreement. Even with all the back and forth of fireworks the last few days, both sides recognize they have to play. Otherwise, they're in a bigger hole for 2021. You can't go dark for 18 months as a sport. It doesn't work financially. It doesn't work in terms of the public. And it's something that really a lot of fans desire. Everybody wants to get the sport back. And the players want their money. The owners want their money and all of that. There's too much incentive for it not to happen, not for that agreement to take place. My concern going forward is simply the logistics and playing out the season and seeing how it goes. I've written this and people have talked about it. Fans, owners, players, everyone involved with the sport, they're going to have to accept that this is not going to be a typical season. It's going to be a season that requires a lot of flexibility and thought on schedule and on how things just might progress. You might need to shut down or cancel a couple of games. You might need to do a number of things. I don't think they'll shut down the sport. That's what they want to avoid. But you're going to have to be of the mindset that this is different. You're going to have to tolerate that. And this goes for all the parties involved. And even then, there might be things that go wrong that really compromise the sport.
Ken, thank you for the time. Continue to be safe and healthy. Wish you luck. Hopefully we'll have a baseball season. Thank you so much. All right, that was Ken Rosenthal, Fox Sports Major League Baseball expert and reporter. All right, Marcellus, get us rolling here. If there is no Major League Baseball season, would you blame Major League Baseball players for that?
No, I wouldn't. I'm understanding this argument from both sides, and respectfully, no one obviously caused this pandemic, but also no one in this situation should try and take advantage of the other because of this pandemic. And if you listen to the words of the Major League Baseball Players Association Executive Director Tony Clark, this is a situation where I think a lot of the players are looking at it as ownership trying to use a global pandemic as a way to try and get something done that they've never been able to do in the past, which is basically get to a salary cap. And think how they're going to get there because of this pandemic. You talk about a baseball player who before this had his guaranteed salary. And then we've moved forward to where you're going to get a prorated portion of that guaranteed salary. But now what comes from it is the next level of 50-50 split of potential revenue. Now that's a leap. And that's a leap that if I were a player, I wouldn't sign on to. Why wouldn't I? Well, one, Major League Baseball is the only major sport that doesn't disclose what their TV deal money and revenue is. So how are we going to talk about a situation and an economy that is really the driving force, because we all know there's a health risk involved. The players are going to actually be in contact with each other. The owners could be distant, far away, and still abiding by social distancing guidelines. But the players, they can't. They have to go out there and take on that inherent risk. They need to be supported, and they need to be compensated for that. And then you talk about the economics, and 40% or north of that is based on in-gate, at-gate, and home stadium money and revenue. Where's that going to come from if you're talking about no fans being in attendance? So you're not telling us your TV money, and there won't be any money in terms of coming through the gate. And we've already said no to salary cap restrictions, which now seem like they're on the table. I'm with Tony Clark. I'm with the players on this one, not going for the banana in the tailpipe.
I woke up this morning, read this story, and was like, man, this is a bad look for the players. I'm on ownership side. I listened to you and Ken Rosenthal talk, and I'm like, no, I'm on the player side. They're taking
right.
the health risk. And I think that point of when you're taking that health risk and the potential of bringing it home to your wife, kids, extended family, whatever, that to me is like, no. You have to incentivize me. And it can't be this 50-50 revenue split again. And there's a reason why the Major League Baseball's player union has been so strong. They have a very cynical attitude about Major League Baseball ownership and the fudging of books and how much money is actually being made. You're throwing all your trust over to ownership for them to, one, be transparent with the money that's being made, and then you're also asking me to take this health risk for not just me and my family. And look, I'm someone that has clearly, to some degree, jumped on the side of, hey, look, there's inherent risk in life, and we're going to have to move more aggressively than what we are during this pandemic. But I'm not someone making $10, $20 million a year playing baseball for a limited amount of time, and I don't blame these guys for valuing themselves and playing the long game here. Hey, we may have to miss a year in order to protect these rights that we've had for a long time. So I go back. I would not blame the players. Their position is reasonable. I do think some of the public may fall for the okie doke. Hey, man, it's rough out here, 50-50. You can still make several $1 million a year playing. Just go out and play the sport. The country needs this. That sounds good, but the reality, if I'm sitting in the player's shoes, I think I make the same decision that they make.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. And be sure to check out more of the best clips from Speak For Yourself, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.